Hey, what's up folks? In this video, we're going to talk about the best Nikon lenses that you can get without hurting your wallet too badly. Coming up. Hey, what's up media makers? I'm Sam DeZeeuw, and here on Forge Media we focus on eliminating those obstacles and embracing your creativity. And every week we put out tutorial videos or review videos on media creation. And here on this video we're going to be talking about the best Nikon lenses for your money. And if you're new here and consider yourself a media maker, consider subscribing because we have a new video out on media creation every single week. And as always, if you're interested in any of the lenses that we talk about here and want more information, you can check out those links in the description below. Starting off our list with number 1, we have a Nikon 35mm prime lens. So if you're unfamiliar with prime lenses and what that basically means a couple things. Mainly though, it means that you are not able to zoom on this lens. All it does is focus. There is no zoom. So you're stuck at 35mm. And now you might be asking, Sam, why would I want that? Why are you even putting this in the list? Well, there's a good reason. And honestly, this is probably my favorite lens. If you're wondering, well, how do I zoom? How do I get closer to things? Well, it's called zooming with your feet. You just get closer. The reason many people go with prime lenses and not zoom lenses is because prime lenses let in a lot more light. For example, this lens is actually a f1.8. And if you're unfamiliar with f-stops and what that means, it means the lower that number, the more wide that the aperture is going to get in your lens. So the more light that comes in. So the lower number, the better. And a 1.8 is pretty good. Which means I can pretty much use this lens in any situation. So if I'm at a dark wedding reception or if I'm out on a bright sunny day, I can use this lens because it works in any lighting situation. This lens is also great for something like portraits. So this lens is great if you kind of want that blurry background in the back and you just want a small amount of things in focus, such as your subject, then this is the way to go. Going along with what I said earlier, the smaller that number, the wider your aperture gets, which means that the depth of field is much smaller. So that means that everything in the background is going to be more out of focus. So basically, the smaller that number, the more out of focus the background. And f1.8 is pretty small, so you're going to have a nice blurry background, so you're going to have some nice, beautiful shots. Also, if you crank the f-stop up to 1.8, you can get some nice rack focuses in, because you're only focusing on something very specific, and then you can focus to something else more specific in the background. Honestly, if I had to pick any lens, this would be my go-to lens, and it's starting at about $200 as of this video being made. So if you're interested in my favorite lens, then I recommend going down to the description below. Coming up next is actually a very different lens. We have a zoom lens. So it's actually a 55 to 200mm lens. So you're already starting out pretty tight, but you can get really tight up to 200mm with this lens. So just like any inexpensive lens, there are some pros and cons. The pros for this is you are actually able to zoom, and you're actually able to zoom in quite a bit, very close to something. What you're losing here, though, is the ability for it to work very well in low light. As I said in the other lens, we had a f1.8 aperture. Well, this lens has a f4.5 aperture, so you're losing the ability to let in a lot of light. So it's not going to work very well in low light situations. So if you're shooting a video in a really large barn and you want to zoom into something really far because you can't get too close. Normally barns aren't very bright inside, so this probably is not the lens to do that with. However, if you are outside on a nice sunny day or inside just with very good lighting, this lens will work. However, with every tight zoom lens, no matter what the situation, no matter what the camera, you're going to experience a lot of vibrations being noticed in your camera when you're really tight on something. If you've never experienced this before, take out your phone camera right now and then zoom in as far as you can, and then try to hold it as steady as possible. You'll notice that you are picking up a lot of vibrations. So the great thing about this lens is it actually has vibration reduction. And I recommend, if you're going to get any lens that is a strong zoom lens that's going to zoom in very far, you've got to get vibration reduction in it, because it's going to stabilize as best as it can, stabilize your footage as you're shooting. So there's mechanisms inside the lens that basically notice your vibrations, your very slight vibrations, and try to counteract that that by doing the opposite vibration, so that way it looks much more stable than it actually is. So if you're looking to do some high intense zooming, then this is probably the lens to start out with because it has vibration reduction, and you can check that out in the description below. That's the one with vibration reduction, which I highly recommend. Also, the last lens that I want to point out is actually not a Nikon lens, but it works with my Nikon camera. It is a Tokina 11 to 16 millimeter. So this is a very wide lens, and the reason I'm not holding it in my hands right now is because it's actually the lens that I'm using right now on this video. So right now this lens is actually set to the 16 millimeter mode. It has a little bit of a zoom, so if I zoom this out to the 11 millimeter, you can see how much wider it is. And as you can see, there's a little bit of distortion here on the edges, but that's kind of what you're going to get with a wide angle lens. You're going to get some sort of distortion because the wider you get, the more distortion you're going to get. Kind of think of like a fisheye lens. You get tons of distortion. It's like a bubble. This is a great lens because we don't have the problem that the zoom has. It's the opposite because we're so wide that you're not going to notice very much vibration. This is a great lens for something like establishing shots in a video or even real estate photography. This is a great lens because you're able to capture a whole room, and it actually makes a lot of rooms look much bigger than they actually are. So when you're shooting for like a realtor or something, they're going to want those pictures, those rooms to look bigger than they actually are. So this is a great lens for either real estate photography or videography, and it's great for establishing shots and getting the scenery of the place that you are shooting at. I can't say that this is my favorite lens only because I said that about the 35 millimeter, but this one's definitely up there. So I will preface by saying, before you check out the link and get taken back by the price, I will say that by nature, wide angle lenses are very expensive. So for what you're getting with this lens, I highly recommend it because it's not totally breaking the bank like most wide angle lenses would be. And I forgot to mention that it lets in a lot of light with a aperture of f2.8. So it does let in a lot of lights, and it's great for kind of low light situations. It's obviously not as good as the f1.8, which we saw in the 35 millimeter, but like I said, for what you're getting, this is a very inexpensive lens. If you're interested in checking out the full review on this specific lens, then you can go ahead and click that card in the top right corner of your screen. So those are my 3 favorite lenses. I mean, we pretty much covered it all. We're going from the wide to the mid-range prime lens to the very tight zoom lens. I think these are all great options, and they're not going to break the bank like most lenses would. But just remember, if it's not in your budget to go ahead and buy a new lens, then that is okay. If you have the kit lens that came with your DSLR camera, then that works just as well. There are going to be some drawbacks, such as not letting in enough light, but that's okay because you can go ahead and just increase the lighting in something like your YouTube videos. Just add more light around you. If that just means going and buying $10 worth of can lights from Home Depot or something like that to add more light to your video, then you've just increased your production value for $10. Obviously, buying a new lens is definitely the better option, but if you're on a budget, just adding more light is the great way to go. If you have any recommendations on Nikon lenses, please go ahead and leave a comment down below and tell me what lenses that you love to use. And as you know, the Forge Media community is always putting down some great details and information, so go ahead and check out those comments down below for even more great suggestions. Guys, if you like this video and haven't subscribed yet, then I encourage you to subscribe because we have a new video out every single week. Thank you so much for watching, and as a reminder, if you're interested in any of the lenses that we talked about here, you can go ahead and check out the links down below. And I will see you guys next week.